I thought I knew him. He was the one, the love of my life, but I never saw it coming. The betrayal, the lies, the manipulation. I set the photo down, my hands trembling, and look away, trying to gather my thoughts. I'm Ava, 32 years old, living in Atlanta, Georgia. I've always been the kind of person who trusts too easily, who believes in the good in people. My job as a marketing manager keeps me busy, but it's the quiet moments, like tonight, that I struggle with the most. How did it go so wrong? How did the man I thought I knew, the one I trusted with everything, end up betraying me in the worst way possible? Is it a crime to love? Stay with me as I share my story. Kindly subscribe and share to your friends to help grow this channel. I can't even explain it to myself. There was no warning, no sign that this would happen. I fell so deeply into his web, into his lies. I thought we were building something real. But now all I feel is this overwhelming emptiness, a gaping hole where my trust once lived. I think about the moments I should have seen the cracks, the late nights, the excuses, but I didn't want to see it. I didn't want to believe that the person I loved could hurt me like this. It's strange, isn't it? To love someone so completely, and then have them rip everything away from you in an instant. To find out that all the sweet words, the promises, were just a mask. A mask for what? Manipulation. Deception. I never thought I'd be here. Yet, here I am, left to pick up the pieces of my broken heart, trying to figure out how to move on from the man I thought would always be by my side. I still remember the first time I met Lucas like it was yesterday. It was at a coffee shop, the kind of place where the barista knows your name, and the sound of espresso machines creates a sort of comfort. I was sitting by the window, scrolling through my phone, when I noticed him, tall, confident, and with a smile that could light up the whole room. He walked up to the counter, and I swear, it felt like the air shifted when he passed by. I don't know what it was, but something about him caught my attention. Maybe it was the way he seemed so effortlessly charming, or the way his eyes lingered on me for just a moment too long. He smiled and nodded, then casually made his way to the seat across from mine. "Mind if I sit here?" he asked, his voice smooth yet warm. I didn't even hesitate. It wasn't like me to be so open with a stranger, but there was something about him. Something I couldn't place. For the next hour we talked. Not the usual small talk. No, this was different. We talked about everything, our childhoods, our favorite books, our dreams for the future. He listened to me in a way no one ever had. He made me feel like I mattered. Like everything I said was important. At that moment I felt seen. And then, of course, came the charm. The way he'd compliment me, always making me feel special, like I was the only one in the room. "You're incredible, Ava," he'd say, his voice sincere. "You have this way about you, like you just understand the world in a way most people can't." It was flattering, intoxicating even. I thought it was fate. That meeting, that conversation, it all felt too perfect to be coincidence. Here was this man who seemed to have everything together. He had ambition, passion, and kindness. And he was paying attention to me, really paying attention in a way I never thought I'd experience. He made me believe in love again. In the kind of love that wasn't just about finding someone who completed you, but someone who made you want to be the best version of yourself. He made me feel like we could build a life together, a future full of shared dreams and quiet moments. He was everything I wanted. The days turned into weeks and the weeks into months. We spent weekends together, often exploring the city or just staying in talking for hours. He always seemed so in tune with me, so understanding. He knew what I needed before I even said it. Every date, every thoughtful gesture, made me feel like I had found my person, my soulmate. And then there were the little things, the notes he'd leave me, the unexpected flowers, the way he always made time for me even when life got busy. He would tell me, "Ava, you're the most important part of my life." I believed him. I truly did. But looking back, I realize now that he wasn't the man I thought he was. The person I gave my heart to, was that even real? Was all of it a lie from the start? I find myself asking that question over and over as I sit here in this apartment, holding on to memories that feel more like a distant dream than a reality. The man who made me feel special, the one who promised me forever, suddenly became a stranger. How did I miss it? How did I fall so deeply for someone who never truly cared for me the way I thought? It's hard to admit, but now I'm starting to wonder if any of it was ever genuine. Was it just a game for him? A way to play with my heart while he kept his secrets hidden? The first crack in our relationship appeared slowly, like a hairline fracture that I didn't notice until it had already spread through the foundation of everything I thought we were. It wasn't a sudden blow, but rather a series of subtle changes, small enough to dismiss at first, but enough to make me question myself later. It started with the text. Lucas, who used to message me good morning without fail, began responding less often. I told myself he was just busy, that work was piling up. But the late nights started to add up. He'd mentioned something about staying late at the office or a sudden meeting that needed his attention. I knew his job required long hours, but this felt different. The late nights stretched into weekends and the calls became fewer. Just a rough patch, I thought. Just stress from work. I convinced myself that everything was fine, that he was just going through a phase, that maybe he was feeling overwhelmed. But then came the absences. There were days when Lucas would go quiet for hours, no text, no call. He'd always have an excuse: I lost track of time, or I had to deal with a personal matter. I wanted to believe him. I told myself, it's nothing, he's just busy. But there was this feeling in my chest, a gnawing discomfort that wouldn't go away. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Why was he pulling away? What did he want from me? It wasn't just the silence or the distance. It was the coldness. He'd once been warm, affectionate, always there when I needed him. But now, when we were together, it felt like I was talking to a stranger. He no longer made me laugh like he used to, and the touches that once felt so tender now seemed mechanical, distant. The Lucas I knew was slipping away and I couldn't stop it. I couldn't even understand it. Still, I convinced myself it was stress. Everyone has their rough patches, right? I kept telling myself that. Maybe he was tired. Maybe it was just a temporary phase. But deep down, I knew I was lying to myself. I was hoping for something that wasn't there. Then one night, everything changed. It was supposed to be a normal evening. Lucas had told me he was going away for a business trip that weekend. At first, I didn't think much of it. His job often required travel. But something inside me, a strange sense of unease, kept me awake long after he had left. Something didn't sit right. It wasn't like him to not call, not check in after a long drive. And it wasn't like him to be gone for so long without a word. So, I did something I never thought I would do. I checked his phone. It wasn't just a feeling anymore. Something in me was desperate for answers. As I scrolled through his messages, my heart sank. There, at the top of his text messages, was a name I didn't recognize: Nina. It was followed by a string of texts, messages I wasn't meant to see, but there they were, in black and white. Can't wait to see you this weekend. I miss you. I'll make it up to you when I get back. I can't wait to be alone with you again. The room spun. My hands trembled as I sat there, staring at the screen. It hit me like a ton of bricks. The truth was too much to process all at once, but it was clear as day. The business trip was a lie. He hadn't been working. He'd been with her. I felt sick, betrayed. I couldn't breathe. I had to confront him. I had no choice. When Lucas walked through the door that night, expecting everything to be as usual, I was waiting for him. His eyes flicked to mine, but when he saw the look on my face, something shifted. I didn't wait for him to speak. You lied to me, I said, my voice shaking with a mixture of anger and disbelief. Lucas froze, his expression faltering for a split second. Then, slowly, he dropped his bag and walked over to me. There was no apology. No regret in his eyes, just a calm detachment that made my blood run cold. I had to do it, he said, his voice almost too calm. I needed out. I've been planning this for months. I stared at him, the words hitting me like a slap. Planning it? What are you talking about? His eyes softened, but there was no tenderness left in them, only coldness. Ava, I've been seeing someone else. I don't love you anymore. Our relationship was a mistake. The ground beneath me seemed to disappear. A mistake. I whispered, feeling my chest tighten. But we were supposed to be building a life together. My voice cracked, unable to finish the sentence. He shrugged. I'm sorry. I didn't want to hurt you, but I can't keep pretending. I felt my heart break. The man I had trusted, the love of my life, was standing in front of me, telling me it was all a lie. He was apologizing for something that didn't even sound like an apology. His words felt empty, hollow. I was blindsided, completely shattered. I had loved him with everything I had. But standing there, I realized that he was never the person I thought he was. He had been using me, manipulating me, and I had been too blind to see it. It wasn't just the affair that broke me. It was the coldness in his eyes, the finality in his voice. I wasn't just betrayed, I was discarded. And just like that, the man I had trusted, the man I had given my heart to, was gone. And in his place stood a stranger. The days after Lucas left, I felt like I was drowning. At first, there was nothing but emptiness, an overwhelming silence that filled every corner of my apartment, every inch of my mind. The world around me seemed to move and fast forward, while I remained frozen in place, unable to comprehend how everything had shattered so quickly. I tried to keep busy, to ignore the voice in my head telling me that something was wrong with me, that I was somehow at fault. But every time I passed by the mirror, I saw someone unrecognizable. My face was pale, my eyes swollen from too many tears. I couldn't stop replaying the conversation over and over, each word echoing in my mind. It was a mistake. I don't love you anymore. I've been planning this for months. I felt ashamed. Ashamed for loving him so fully, for trusting him so completely. I thought I knew him. I thought I could see through the facade, but I was wrong. Was I that blind? That gullible? The shame wrapped around me like a tight knot. I found myself avoiding phone calls, hiding from my friends, not wanting anyone to see me like this. I was embarrassed to admit to them that the man I had built my future around was just a stranger, someone who never truly cared. They all told me to let go, to move on, but all I could hear in their words was, "You were weak. You let him do this to you." What kind of person was he? How could I have been so blind? I asked myself those questions every single day. There were nights I lay awake, my mind spinning with the what-ifs. What if I had been more understanding? What if I had given him more space? What if I hadn't gotten so wrapped up in our future? Could I have done something differently to save us? Each thought only made the pain worse. It was like I was being torn apart, not just by his betrayal, but by my own self-doubt. Could I have seen the signs? Did I want to see them? Had I been so desperate for love that I ignored everything else? I started to wonder if maybe it wasn't about him. Maybe it was something I had done wrong. Maybe I wasn't good enough for him. But that's when I realized something that hit me like a slap across the face. It was never about me. It was about him. I had spent so much time blaming myself, trying to figure out how I could have been better, how I could have saved the relationship. But the truth was, Lucas had his own issues. His own insecurities, his own flaws, his own need for control. He was selfish. He used me to fill a void in his own life, and when he no longer needed me, he discarded me without a second thought. It wasn't about my shortcomings. It was about his inability to love me the way I deserved to be loved. It was about his emotional immaturity, his inability to confront his own issues, his need to manipulate and control the people around him. At that moment, I understood. This wasn't my fault. It was a painful realization, but one that started to heal the cracks in my heart. I wasn't broken because of something I did. I was broken because I trusted someone who never deserved my trust in the first place. And though that truth stung, it also gave me a sense of clarity. I wasn't the problem. I was the victim of his lies and manipulations. It took time, more time than I'd like to admit, but I started to rebuild. Slowly, painfully, but surely. I threw myself into work, started focusing on the things that made me happy before Lucas. I started exercising again, reading books I hadn't touched in months, spending time with friends I had neglected. It wasn't easy. The nights were long and the memories of him still haunted me. But each day I grew stronger. Each day I felt a little less empty. And one day I realized something else, something even more important than everything else I had learned. It was enough. I had always had enough. And I wasn't going to let anyone, not even Lucas, make me forget that again. The healing process was long, but it was mine to take control of. And it started with one simple truth. I was no longer a victim of his choices. I was the survivor of them. And that made all the difference. The first few months after Lucas left felt like I was treading water, trying to keep my head above the surface. But slowly something changed inside me. I stopped wallowing in my pain, stopped letting my sadness define me. I started to focus on me, something I had neglected for far too long. I got up early each morning and forced myself to work out, pushing my body and my mind in ways I hadn't in years. I wanted to feel strong again, not just physically but emotionally. Work became my refuge. I poured everything I had into my job, thriving in ways I never thought possible. With each success, I built my confidence piece by piece. Slowly but surely, I started to see myself differently, more independent, more capable, more whole. I realized that the best revenge wasn't about getting back at Lucas, but about becoming the best version of myself. Will she just let him walk away unscathed, or does she have something else planned? Lucas had walked away, leaving me broken. But now I had the power to decide what came next, and it was no longer about him. It was about me. A few months later, when I least expected it, my phone rang. I almost didn't recognize the number, but when I saw his name flash across the screen, my heart stopped for a moment. Lucas. I hadn't heard from him since he walked out of my life, and I wasn't sure what to feel. I stared at the screen for a moment, my thumb hovering over the answer button. What could he possibly want? Was this some kind of sick joke, or was he actually trying to get back into my life? I answered the call, keeping my voice steady. Ava, I'm sorry. I know I messed up. I've been thinking about everything and I made the biggest mistake of my life. I still love you. Please, can we try again? I can't live with myself knowing I hurt you like this. His words were laced with regret. They sounded sincere. But were they? I felt a surge of emotions, anger, disbelief, and yes, a little bit of that old longing. Part of me wanted to fall into his arms, to believe that the man who had once been everything to me was truly sorry. But another part of me, the stronger part, knew better. What does he really want? Is it love or is it control? I wasn't the same person I had been when he left. My world had shifted. I had healed, grown, and become someone who wasn't dependent on him or his love to feel whole. Was he coming back because he missed me? Or was he just looking for a way to regain control? I couldn't let myself fall for the same manipulations again. Instead of immediately giving in, I paused, taking a deep breath before I spoke. I'll meet you, I said, my voice calm but firm. But not for what you think. I arranged to meet Lucas at an upscale charity event. It was a public event, one that I had worked hard to be a part of. The perfect setting. The perfect timing. He didn't know it, but this wasn't going to be a reunion. This was going to be my moment. I arrived at the event ahead of time, dressed in a sleek black dress that made me feel powerful. The lights were bright, the room buzzing with conversation and laughter. It felt good to be here, to be around people who admired and respected me, not for the woman I had been, but for the woman I had become. Lucas showed up, looking the same as I remembered, handsome, well-dressed, but with a hint of uncertainty in his eyes. When he saw me, his face changed. His eyes widened for a split second before he caught himself. But I saw it. He was shocked. I wasn't the woman who had waited for his calls, who had cried over his betrayal. I wasn't the same vulnerable woman he could manipulate. As he walked toward me, I stood tall, meeting his eyes with a quiet confidence. I wasn't intimidated anymore. I wasn't even angry. I was free. Wow, Ava, he said, almost stumbling over his words. You look amazing. I didn't expect you to be so, I don't know, different. I smiled, but it wasn't a smile of kindness. It was a smile of power, of self-assurance. I am different, I said calmly, and so is my life. I've moved on, Lucas. In every way that matters. His eyes flickered with confusion, and for a moment, I saw a flicker of regret in them. But it was too little, too late. I'm not the same woman who was devastated by you. I've rebuilt myself. And I don't need you to complete me. I never did. I let the words sink in, watching his face as he processed what I was saying. Will he finally realize what he's lost? Or will his ego keep him from understanding the consequences of his actions? I could see the wheels turning in Lucas's head. The man who once had the power to manipulate me, to control my heart, was now standing in front of me, powerless. I could almost see the realization dawning on him, that he had lost more than just a relationship. He had lost me. He started, but I cut him off. "I've moved on, Lucas," I said, my voice steady, unshaken. "Not just from you, but from everything you represented. I'm stronger now, more successful, and I don't need you to validate my worth." His face paled. For a moment he looked like he might say something else, but he didn't. He stood there, speechless, realizing that whatever he had hoped to salvage was gone. And for the first time since he walked out on me, I felt a sense of closure. Lucas was left speechless, his regret now crashing against the reality of what he had lost. He had come to me hoping to find a way back into my life, but instead he found that I had already moved on. I wasn't just moving on emotionally, I was thriving. In his attempt to get back what he thought he could control, he had lost everything. The trust, the love, the connection we had, it was all gone. And what hurt the most was that he couldn't even fully comprehend the consequences of his actions until it was too late. He walked away that night, but I knew something he didn't. The person he had betrayed no longer existed. And in its place stood someone who would never, ever let him, or anyone else, treat her like that again. The days following our meeting felt like a whirlwind, yet, somehow, everything in my life had slowed down to a crawl. I had no idea where Lucas went after the event. He didn't try to contact me, didn't show up at my door like I had half expected him to. In fact, I didn't hear from him at all, until one late evening when my phone rang again. I glanced at the screen. It was him, Lucas. I hesitated before answering. I knew what this was. He wanted me back. He wanted to fix what he had broken. But I was done with him. I had already left that chapter behind me, yet his name still caused a pang in my chest. A pang that now felt distant, almost foreign. I let the phone ring out. The next day I saw his number again, and again I didn't answer. No text. No voicemail. Just his name staring at me, a constant reminder that even if he could regret all he wanted, it wouldn't change what had happened. It was too late. His last-ditch attempts to reach me continued over the next few days, texts and calls unanswered. He must have known deep down that there was nothing left to save. I wasn't the same person he had known, the one he could manipulate and discard. The woman who once waited for him was gone, and in her place stood a woman who had learned to live for herself. Is it too late for him? Can regret ever truly heal a broken heart? Lucas would never know the full weight of what he had lost. No phone call, no apology, no grand gesture could take back the months of lies, the coldness, the betrayal. Regret, no matter how deeply felt, was never enough to heal the scars he had left. I leaned back on the couch, looking out the window at the city that had once felt so overwhelming, but now, somehow, seemed peaceful. The world had moved on, and so had I. There were still moments when the past crept up on me, like when I walked past a familiar place we used to go, or when I saw a photo of him in the old messages, but they no longer held the same power. In fact, I had come to realize something profound. Sometimes betrayal isn't the end of a story. It's just the beginning of something new. I had faced the darkness that Lucas had left me in, but I had built myself back up. I wasn't the broken woman I had been months ago. I had healed. I had learned to trust myself again, to love myself in ways I had never allowed before. And now I had a future I was excited about, one I could shape on my own terms. I stood up, looking at my reflection in the mirror. The woman staring back at me was strong, resilient, and free. I wasn't defined by Lucas or the pain he caused me. I wasn't defined by the betrayal. I was defined by my own choices, my own growth. I had finally taken control of my life. Sometimes betrayal isn't the end. It's the beginning of something new. The pain was still there, but it no longer had a hold on me. I wasn't waiting for someone to save me. I had saved myself. And for the first time in a long time, I felt at peace. I could move forward, no longer trapped in the shadow of a love that never truly existed. What Lucas didn't realize was that in trying to destroy me, he had only made me stronger. And now I am ready for the future. Ready to live the life I had always deserved, on my own terms. As I walked away from the mirror, I took a deep breath. The past was just that, the past. I was no longer the woman who loved blindly. I was someone new, and I was ready for whatever came next. He was the love of my life. But I realized that sometimes love isn't enough. Sometimes you have to choose yourself. And in the end, I did just that. As the words hung in the air, I couldn't help but feel a sense of closure wash over me. It had taken me so long to get to this point, to understand that love, no matter how deep, is not always enough to hold something together. Not when it's built on lies, manipulation, and broken promises. Sometimes you have to stop sacrificing yourself for someone else and start giving that love to the one person who deserves it most, yourself. Lucas had been my everything once, but I wasn't going to be anyone's second choice. I wasn't going to let someone else's betrayal define me. I chose me, and in doing so, I found the strength I thought I had lost forever. But what if the tables were turned? Would he still be able to move on from me? Or would he forever be haunted by the consequences of his own actions? As I sat there, the weight of the question lingered. What if Lucas had been on the other side of this? Would he have learned from the pain he caused? Would he have changed, or would he forever be trapped in his own ego, unable to understand the depth of the damage he'd done? I might never know the answer. But in the end, it didn't matter. The truth was, I wasn't waiting for answers anymore. I was done looking back. I had moved on, and now the only thing that mattered was the life I was building for myself.